Right, guys, welcome back once again. And wow, Games Workshop have absolutely blown it out of the water. So much so that the podcast is not just me and James today. We've also got Grant from the AOS podcast.
Hello.
And we've got the mariniest marine player alive, Mr. Jake Hillard.
Hey.
Sound a bit more excited.
Hey.
I realised I didn't say hello. Hello, everybody, as well. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't leave James enough space there. So, there was a big reveal on Saturday. And to not many people's surprise, they announced 9th edition. Cool, fair enough. 7th edition was 3 year, 8th edition's been 3 year. It's not really that big of a surprise that it's coming. But the good thing is, and I'm sure Grant will probably agree with this, the changes aren't going to be bad. All books are still going to be viable, and I think it's more of a refinement of the edition, much like AOS 2.0 was.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe that I've got from it. I think it was needed.
Yeah.
As somebody coming back into it, having not played in about 2 years, the amount of changes from the actual printed book was pretty off-putting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And of course, they left us with a giant, gaping website with lots and lots of pictures of new models, some fantastic Necron models, some really cool, hyped Space Marine models. Jake, what stood out for you about the models?
For me, it's all about this executioner guy. What's he called? A Judicar or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really hyped on him. Obviously, I'm going to do a head swap because everyone in my Imperium has a helmet.
Everybody in my Imperium!
But, yeah, he's really good. I think a lot of the new characters are aces as well, though. The new captain I'm looking at, he seems to have some sort of... He seems to have a hood on his armour, so it might be a Gravis captain with that storm shield.
Yeah. And do you know that's a mini mariner he's got on the front of it?
Was it?
Yeah, the lieutenant was shown off and it was confirmed that he's got the Volkite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The Storm Shield guys remind me very much of Calgar's Honor Guard.
The Victrix lads, yeah.
It's the new veteran unit, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the first company veteran unit.
Blade Guard veterans or something, isn't it called?
Yeah. And they've been obviously confirmed to have a master-crafted power sword, which is pretty nice.
That's very nice. Very nice. And the biggest response that I feel Games Workshop said that they'd responded to was a close combat Primaris unit. Great, but by close combat, most of us didn't necessarily want chainsword intercessors.
No.
But I expected like jump pack marines with like a better close combat weapon, like mauls and shields or something like that.
That's coming though. I think you're going to get stuff like that. I think
that was podcast award-winning material.
Yeah, apologies about that. So, James, I was mentioning a different assault squad, and you said that you think something like that will come.
Yeah, what I was saying was that I think that as the new units are there, that's like going to be the box that will be like a baseline, and you'll get more additions to those and more abilities to customize those units as you go on. I mean, obviously, there's with how the amount of lieutenants already out, they're fairly customizable already. And I think you're going to get a load more things like that as we get on to big Devastators with potentially, or Primaris equivalent of Devastators with weapons.
If you look very closely on the Marine picture,
yes,
there is 3 Gravis Marines between the Judicar and the Ancient, and they look like they've got kind of underslung heavy bolters. One of them's got a melter gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do look melterish to me. Obviously, they've got the double barrel of the multi-melter. I reckon it's likely to be just a new version of a melter rather than a current one. Just
a melter incinerator.
Yes,
probably.
Obviously, the big speculation is that they're the Hell Furies that were mentioned in the most recent codex. Obviously, there's been no model sighting on, so it's pretty likely it's them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the bikes, which we'll get to in a second, have already been confirmed that they are the Outriders that were mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love the new bike models, right? I think they're really, really cool, apart from one part. The wheels.
Yeah, they are just the old wheels, aren't they? They've done nothing really new on them.
Why are they not grab bikes?
Because if you're familiar with the Heresy at all, the Heresy, as I said before, the Heresy have jet bikes and normal bikes, and the normal bikes in the Heresy are called Outrider units. So I think this opens them up to do jet bikes down the line, in keeping in that theme of a lot of Primaris stuff is Heresy-based and moves forward.
True.
So I think that's what they're doing. And I think if you're going to put out jet bikes, you don't need to put them in the starter set.
No.
Primaris Custodes.
Yeah. Now, one thing that was mentioned on the Q&A stream was that an Astartes chainsword is very different to a normal chainsword.
Yep.
Yeah,
Didn't say how.
I'd imagine that will just manifest as a -1 AP.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think it'll more than likely will be a -1 AP, but how good would it be if it's a +1 strength?
Its +1 strength would be amazing. Another option they could do is +2 attacks rather than the usual +1 family chainsword.
Yeah.
Oh god, that'll make them brutal though. Like
Yeah.
it's either or though. It's got to be either the plus
with
two attacks or -1 AP.
Yeah.
You couldn't do both, otherwise it's insane.
Yeah.
So Stu Black and P. Foley have someone asked specifically, could Death Company intercessors take chain swords? And Pete Foley just said, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So get this right. 2 attacks base.
Yeah.
+1 for Black Rage, +1 for Shock Assault, +1 for Silent Echoes, +1 for a chain sword, +1 for the Sanguinor, +1 for Unleash Rage.
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's 8 attacks per Death Company.
Yeah. I think yeah.
That's if you have all those rules in that new codex you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that whether they're going to streamline a lot of stuff down so that it turns into almost a bit of a restart for all the chapters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, at the moment there's a lot of things with the new edition that potentially concern me slightly, and there's a lot of stuff that really excites me. Like I'm well excited for this. I'm certainly not going to be one of the ridiculous amount of naysaying that's been going on about the new edition.
Yeah.
That's been going, which is just needs to stop. I mean, it's just pointless drivel on so many Facebook pages of people just caning it for no good reason, really.
Nobody knows anything, and realistically, even in the Q&A session, they were very, very scarce on details.
Yes.
But
I think we all kind of expect it to be fairly scarce on any specifics.
Yeah.
Before we do jump into what was discussed in the Q&A and the rules, we've got one more Space Marine model, and then we've got a ton of Necron models to talk about. The Chaplain in the middle of the Space Marine picture.
Yeah.
Cassius.
I would find it a bit odd for them to put a named character in a edition starter box.
Okay.
Obviously, they've done it in mid-edition, like army bundle boxes. Obviously, we had the 2 Eldar factions recently. But as an edition starter box, I'm not sure.
They did it with 6th edition, did they not? With the Dark Angels and the Chaos. Wasn't there a limited edition named Chaplain or Librarian or something in that?
Yeah, he wasn't he was a new character. I don't think he was.
He wasn't a name character. It was like the Sergeant Jovan that you've got at the minute.
Okay, so the box has a name, but he wouldn't have any special rules.
Yeah, he wasn't an established dude. He's just a character they just chucked a name on.
But potentially, maybe they felt they've set the precedent with the box sets before. That now maybe they feel they have to put a named character in it, and potentially thinking that that may sell it a bit more. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, if it is Cassius, I'll be pretty happy. Like I play all Marine chapters pretty much, but I'm happy to play Ultramarines.
I think if it's Cassius, also the thing that will strike a chord with me is I think you're going to then see pretty much. You can almost guarantee you're going to see nearly every other named character Primarisified over the coming years.
I'm not objected to that. I mean, let's face it, Dante needs it.
Yes, he looked awesome.
But I think some of the characters need to die crossing the Rubicon.
Dante
'Cause it's
needs
always-
to die.
It does always feel like, oh, it's so dangerous, and so far everyone's been like, it's fine.
Well, it's not,
Well,
because
Ragnar died first, so he was already technically pretty much dead. So that's how he got through it.
But for those that know the Blood Angel fluff, the reason that Dante didn't go through with it is because he was too much of a valuable asset to the Imperium, and they didn't want to risk him dying.
I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen.
I hope he does die. I really, as a Blood Angel player and fan, I genuinely hope he does. But that is also the reason that they put Mephiston through, because he went into a psycho, deep sleep rage thing that killed loads of the epistolaries. They were like, let's see if we can make him stronger. If he dies, he dies. Oh well. Cool.
You know what's coming?
What?
Dreadnought Dante. He'll be in a Redemptor with some sort of anti-grav, so you can jump back.
Oh, don't even get me started. I want to do a conversion now. Anyway, we digress from the topic, which is now Necrons.
Exciting. Very exciting.
Jake?
Yeah.
You're very quiet.
Yeah, I've always loved Necrons. They were my first army back in 5th, and it sort of made me want to play them again. These models are ace.
I've got a lot of Necrons, and I don't feel the love with them in 8th edition at all.
Yeah.
And seeing this picture, I'm like, I genuinely want to pick some of these up straight away. So, the first thing that stands out in the picture to you, Jake, what is it?
It's probably that weird War of the Worlds kind of walker thing.
On the left. And there's a smaller one on the right-hand side as well.
Yeah, so on the left it looks like it's got the, was it the Doomsday Arc gun?
Yes.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's obviously a Canoptech unit, and I've always really enjoyed their aesthetic.
Yeah, so the face just under the gun looks very much like that of a Wraith, but then the top of it looks like a spider, so yeah, I would definitely agree that is a Canoptech unit.
Yeah. Also, just below it, that new Destroyer Lord, or what looks like it's going to be a Destroyer Lord.
Gun, right, if you look at the nozzle, or the muzzle of the gun, wow, that is so, like, high-tech.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. I love it. I really love it. Of course, they hyped up the Warriors, which is good that they've now got another option. I mean, James, you've probably played against a lot of Necrons. How boring is it to play against just Warriors?
Yeah, although in fairness, because I normally play fairly competitive, you don't see Warriors, so it's normally Immortals.
Exactly.
So I think with the different weapons or loadouts, I think you're going to see potentially, I don't know what the stats are on them yet, but you may well see a lot more Warrior. Or are you? Well, we can't really talk about that because we're not going to talk about the show yet. Let's wait and see.
But the sculpts of the models are really nice. They do genuinely look a little bit scary as opposed to comic book-like.
Yeah. And they're beaten down now as well, like with the new Warriors, because they're not supposed to be like the top of the range. Don't get the best reanimation. Some of them have got damaged eyes, bits of weapons hanging off. I think they've really excelled. I really like. I'm not a Necron fan at all, but I think they look awesome.
Absolutely. For me, one of the most awesome models is slap bang in the centre, that new monolith.
Yeah. I hope, to be honest, that they have rules that make them worth putting on the tabletop, because I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Now, it's very obviously a monolith, right? But when you look at the small changes that they've made, they are all fantastic. So, you've got the curvature of the 3 pillars on each side, rather than like the very straight feel of the old one. You've got the golf ball in the middle instead of the crystal.
Yeah.
If you look at the guns, they look like the guns that are on the 4 spheres in the corner. They look like they are from the Doomsday Arc, which is flying just behind it.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite things, the portal on the front.
Yeah, because it's got a Necron built into it coming out, a Warrior, hasn't it?
It has, and it's got like a double pyramid layer. So you can see the darker green one in the middle, but then of course it's got the lightning going across, rather than that really bad plastic sheet of rippled water.
Yeah. I mean, you can obviously tell with all these new models that have been released, so they're just refreshing everything to get rid of that clear plastic green stuff.
The rods, yeah.
Yeah, the rods. Obviously, the Warriors had them, the Monolith had them, the Heavy Destroyers had them, so they're going to have to... That might be what that is, the new Destroyer Lord. That might be a Heavy Destroyer.
Yeah.
Or at least it will be built out of that kit, I would expect.
Yeah. Well, it's good. The image has got all the gauze on it, so I think that's the new Heavy Destroyer.
Yeah.
Because the current Destroyers, I think the guns don't have the rods in, but the Heavy Destroyer does, and it's a fine cast upgrade kit, and let's face it, it looks a bit naff.
It does, yeah. I used to have a unit of 3, and I just hated using them, so I couldn't make them look good.
So, if you look very carefully in this picture as well, there's several other things. So, next to the Heavy Destroyer, we've got what looks like a character. And is it Zandrek who's got the cloak?
Yeah, he's
this
the
looks
guy
like
who...
it could be Zandrek.
It could be Zandrek, but I would question who the two guys you're always seeing him with are. Like these guys that look like kind of walking dustbins. They're the only ones I'm really not sold on.
Yeah.
If it is Zandrek, he is also pictured in the picture that's the starter kit, or the starter box.
Yeah.
So if it is him, there may well be a named character in the Necron out of the starter box, which does lead credence to the fact it might be Cassius on Marine Huff.
Absolutely.
But if it's Zandrek, where's Oberon?
Yeah, I'd question that. I'm not sure it's Zandrek. He has got his vibe, though. But that's a war site rather than a Staff of Light by the look of it as well.
Yeah.
Zandrek, he didn't use one because he was more just a tactician rather than a fighter.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We've also got the... I can't remember the guy's name, but he's right next to the Monolith with the giant lightning claw.
Skorpek Lord, I think, was the...
No, because I believe the Skorpek were a different unit to this guy. He was bigger than them.
Oh, this is the Lord version.
Oh, right, okay.
Skorpek Lord, yeah.
Oh, cool, even better. Even better. Of course, behind him, you've got Mortarion.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously a Catan. It's got some sort of tail on, so they could have finally done the Dragon of Mars, but I don't know.
Yeah, the wings look really, really cool as well.
Yeah.
I love the lightning going between it all as well, which is also reflected in the model behind that one, which is very obviously the Silent King.
Yeah, like that's...
Yeah, that looks...
There's no way that's
incredible.
Not. When they revealed it, I was just like, Nagash!
See, I instantly went Catacross because of the plinth.
Yeah, it's got a very Catacross vibe, and obviously the Bone Reapers are very much the Necrons of AOS, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does look really nice. I'm super interested to see his rules and see if he's actually usable, because again, I'd like to just see him opposite me on the tabletop a lot.
Oh yeah. I hope obelisks get equally good rules as well, because they should be better than what they are.
Yeah.
I think you're looking... Sorry, Harry.
No, go for it.
I was just about to say, I think you're probably looking for looking at a complete Necron overhaul with the rules, and I think everything's going to be different with them.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive overhaul.
Yeah, I think they need it because the way reanimation protocols works currently doesn't.
Yes.
So the other thing that I noticed about the Silent King, of course, there's a Catan tied up in the back between the 3 prongs straight above him.
Yeah.
And I love that he's kind of got little walking legs on the bottom of his throne that are basically walking him along.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you've got these 2 giant shields with the orbs. And if you look very carefully, you can see that they're on their own bases.
Oh, yeah, so they're floating up.
Yeah.
I imagine that's some sort of shield projector. I expect it gives like a defensive buff to everyone around him.
Grot shields.
could be a case of he can move them around and send them to maybe support different units.
Yeah.
They can maybe arrange to go to be within X amount of inches of him, and they get like a defensive buff sort of thing, and then they can pass that buff on to units nearby.
Yeah. Absolutely. There is one more unit as well, which is really, really hard to see with the image that I'm looking at. It's between the Stalker and the Void Dragon. And there's also what looks to be a piece of terrain there. I can't see it on this picture, though, because I've got writing all over it.
Okay. I'll find one that hasn't got writing all over it, but I don't remember seeing that.
I don't know if the terrain's a model or if it's just studio terrain they've built.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Bone Reaper stuff was all like custom terrain they just built and wasn't really available.
Yeah, sorry, he's not over there. He's actually behind the monolith next to the War of the Worlds thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a flayed one.
Oh, cool.
Of course, because there was a story about them recently, wasn't there, in the Psychic Awakening sort of story thing. And obviously they're fine cats, so they're going to want to get rid of that.
Please God.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a flayed one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't have human skin, though.
It's the stance. It's very kind of like gene stealery.
From what I remember, the flayed ones were always the wearing human skin and stuff like that, and being generally a bit unpleasant.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It looks like he's got some extra stuff on him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think there's enough excitement in that picture that we don't have to hope that anyone come in.
Right, so moving on to the Q&A stream that just happened over on the Warhammer community page on Twitch. Loads and loads of information was revealed, and nothing that was too specific was revealed.
Yeah.
We know enough to tease us, but not give us any information. Now, I'll run through you guys all first to see which bits you liked. Just shout out one point that you liked the most about what you've heard about 9th edition. James.
I'm going for the way you do CP now. Having it as a set amount per point level or power level, I think is really good, and it's going to massively help armies like Custodes or other small elite armies.
Yeah.
Hugely. Now, what you do that CP is also very interesting. I think we need to keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's my big one from that, I think.
When they revealed it and they were like, more CP for everyone, I was like, no! And then when they said it's based on the point size of the game, I was like, yes! Jake, what was your biggest highlight?
Basically the death of Soup, having to buy in different army books with CP as a mono-faction player that delights me.
Yes, totally agree. Again, something that was needed, and if you want to play a Soup, you can still do it.
Yeah.
Although I think competitively, I'm going to argue that it doesn't actually kill Soup later on, but we'll get to that a bit later.
Okay.
And Grant, what did as somebody who's returning to 40k, what bit stood out for you?
Well, mine was the CP, but since that's been said, purely because of the way I'm building my army, I don't really want to have to take troops.
Yeah.
I really like the limit of the -1/+1 modifiers.
Yeah.
I just think there's nothing worse than suddenly having -4 to hit and you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's boring for everyone. It just slows everything down.
The example that they used, and I'm also going to direct this towards James, is a Leotok Eldar Flyers. So you've got -1 to hit because of being up in the air.
Yeah.
You've got -1 to hit because of a Leotok, and then you just go, you know what, screw you, he's enhanced reflexes.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I knew something like this was going to happen. I knew they had to do something about it, totally, because it was ridiculous. Like, I used to play games where you go, right, you're Imperial Guard, and you're not hitting my flyers anymore, so deal with that. But on the flip side of that, it invalidates a lot of stratagems, psychic power. Like Harlequins lose 2 psychic powers, essentially, unless they're getting a massive reworking. They
just had their big reworking,
and they just had that. And they lose a stratagem.
The Admech have one for +2 to hit. If you charge with a data tether, which everybody uses on Dragoons, that's gone.
And
but that's still usable.
You what?
that's still usable.
For the minute,
Because you could be
it is.
-1 to hit, and you could spend it be +2, so you end up getting net +1 to hit.
But they never said that you could or couldn't do that, so we don't know until we find out the rules. Hopefully they'll say accumulate all your modifiers, and the maximum you can swing either way is 1.
But I think what concerns me is you've got armies. Again, I'm gonna hark back to my beloved Harlequins. That this potentially could be quite detrimental to them as a faction because, all right, yeah, their vehicles have that -1, but actually they're still low wound count, very squishy vehicles that die relatively easily. And you actually need those minus improvements to keep your vehicles alive a lot more than other people do. And I think you've got things like Death Guard where potentially you lose some of the flavour out of Death Guard with their abilities to give -1s, etc. I want to see where they go with it, and I think they'll end up being FAQ'd and probably changed later down the line.
Nurgle in general was something that did pop into my head, as they are also known for their stacking their minuses to hit.
Yeah, and
instead it might make them more durable.
Plague Bearers in 40k, I know Grant's come across Plague Bearers in Sigmar, and they're equally as annoying. But you take, is it more than 20? And I think the -1 to hit, and then you take
the spoil pretty much always take a full man squad,
and then you take one of the characters and you cast the spell that's another -1 to hit on them. And the annoying thing about that is, if you get them below 20 models, you're still at -1 until the end of the phase.
Yeah.
So
I think it's got to be looked at. I think, but apparently with this, they've done extensive playtesting with this particular edition, and they've got some of the top like Nova guys doing the competitive side of it. So with luck, that's all been ironed out. But I wonder whether they're saying that all your current codices and everything are valid for 9th edition. But then how can they be valid when you lose a large portion of what makes the codes? Like Craft Worlds. How can Craft Worlds be valid when a Laytok are essentially dead? Because what's the point in a Laytok without that extra -1 there? The rest of their Craft World abilities is essentially useless.
Well, that means that they're like natural, like their troops are -1. You don't have to take planes and be a Laytok.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And I think valid just means functional. You don't need to buy a new index.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're
it means
obviously
you're
going to
play
lose
that game,
things
you might not.
until you get your 8th book.
Until you get the new codex come, which we all know are going to come.
Yeah.
And the new app, which is very exciting.
The app is exciting, yes. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm very hyped on the app.
Was no one asked any questions about that? I was amazed that no one asked about the app.
No.
Or they did, and it wasn't answered. I mean, we don't know it wasn't asked.
Yeah, it's obviously they cherry pick the questions, don't they? So I wanted to confront the app at the moment.
Right, so I've got a load of notes about everything that they mentioned. So we'll go through each point and you guys let me know what your thoughts are. So they did ask a question on the subject of tanks basically being able to... I can't remember exactly, but they can either fire into combat or they get bonuses when shooting against Horde armies. And the question was asked, what bonuses do Horde armies get? And Pete Foley basically went, oh, well, terrain now gets tags. So you can have one of them that's obscured, which means even if you can see through it, you can't. So first thing for me there is terrain becoming like Sigmar, where this terrain feature has this rule? And secondly, he totally averted the question.
Yeah, he did,
Yeah, I think they're going the Sigmar route of the terrain.
Which is good.
Or a version of it.
When you remember the rules for Sigmar terrain, it's good.
Yes.
No, I've not looked at the rules for Sigmar terrain, so I don't play. But they did have a kind of each bit of terrain has its own rules in this edition, just no one used them.
Yeah.
Because they weren't that great. But I think they're probably making a step in the right direction with this, rather than having every bit of terrain be just homogenized. Am I standing on this? Yes. Well, I have a +1 armor save then.
Yeah. He did.
I mean, there's 12 rules in AOS for terrain, so you can easily get a huge variety from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just before each game, you've got to really just have a look at it and be sensible about that's obviously a hill, that's a bush.
Yeah.
Whatever,
And I think one of the things they also alluded to was that I think line of sight blocking terrain. And one thing that I caught hold of what he said was that, if you see an aerial poking out the side of something, you won't be able to hit it or shoot it.
Yeah.
So I think potentially they're looking at doing line of sight to hull or to body rather than arm, tip of gun, aerial or something like that. So I think that providing it's well written and obvious, I think that could be really, really good.
Such as
and actually time saving as well. When you're playing a competitive game, you actually then don't have to worry about, oh God, this little bit of my fin is sticking out. Now you go, right, actually, the hull and the body of this is hidden. I can get a whole unit behind here and it's safe.
Dark Eldar Raider fin.
Harlequins. Every part of Harlequin jet bikes.
It does mean that you won't have to see a load of ridiculous model builds just to try
yes.
try and keep everything close to the ground, like having your tow broadsized kneeling or something,
Yeah, definitely.
Or your Basilisk Earthshaker cannon pointing at the ground.
At some point, that's going to be modelling for advantage, and you just get a swift kick.
Yeah.
There is a fine line there.
The next point that was brought up, Stu Black mentioned leaving combat, being able to just walk away from it was too easy, he said. So they've looked at that. What they've looked at in any capacity, they didn't mention. They also said that Overwatch had been looked at, but again, didn't mention what had been looked at, just that they had been tweaked.
Do you think with Overwatch it's something to do with the lines? Because they said that it makes it so what they wanted was for combat armies to be able to get into combat and for you to leave combat to have there to be repercussions for you leaving combat. Yeah. Now, current repercussions of a lot of things for leaving combat is pretty good. So I wonder whether there's either a leadership role maybe to leave combat, or with an Overwatch where there's no re-rolls added to Overwatch. So if you're next to Gilliman and you're re-rolling, doesn't matter. You've used the rolls. You've had your sixes. That's what you're getting.
I would like it to go back to 7th edition where you can only Overwatch one unit.
Yeah.
Because currently, if you fail a charge with one unit, right, I'll charge the next one. Cool. I'm going to fire that squad again.
Yeah.
What about if they make it so heavy weapons can't Overwatch, assault and rapid fire can?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's running towards you, you've got a rocket launcher. Chances are you're not going to get it ready in time to shoot them when they're far enough away from you. You're probably going to take you and your whole squad and them out.
There's a chance you're going to kill yourself if you run one. Scatter dice are back, everybody.
I think heavy flamers should be allowed, though.
Yeah, flamers make sense.
But they just have to make a rule that this rule does not apply to flame weapons.
Yeah,
of course. But I really, really need them to look at it and go, right, these people are charged from 12 inches away. I can shoot my 9-inch flamer because they are going to be in range at some point.
Yes.
That
makes sense.
That would be fair.
Yeah.
Well, 7th edition had the Wall of Flame. If you charged, you simply got like D3 auto hits or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that was when templates were a thing. But instead of firing your template, you basically just went D3 auto hits.
Yeah, which is kind of what became what flame weapons are just all the time.
The next thing that was mentioned that I was really, really, really happy about, right, is if you've got a Marine that's 2 inches in the air on top of a little rock,
your
Carnifex can now batter him.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. Shouldn't happen. So they were talking about.
And they actually said, look, that's not the way we wanted it to play. There's absolutely no reason why a Hive Tyrant can be stood in front of a Marine that is 2 or 3 steps up and not be able to hit him. And I
wonder if they'll bring in any sort of basic height rules.
Yeah, maybe.
So for example, like I've had a look at the Kings of War rules from Mantic.
Yeah.
And they have like 3 or 4 different height options for units. And that dictates your line of sight and stuff like that. So you can shoot over infantry, you can't shoot through like monstrous infantry and stuff like that. So potentially it could be a case of if you're up 1 flight, like a monster can hit you because they're bigger.
If you're up 2 flights, then it's got to be like a Titanic unit or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's about right. Yeah, I don't
something like that. Just very simple and very basic, but taking into consideration the height of the kit.
They were obviously aware of it because there's a stratagem in the Knight Codex to allow a knight to fight somebody that is higher than his base.
reach your arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the idea, actually, of talking of that, whether that would make things really interesting, of being able to hide behind vehicles a bit better and actually use vehicles as a moving wedge, like tanks were used in World War II. You'd walk behind the tanks to advance to get close to the enemy, and that would be really cool if you get some form of bonuses from being behind things like that. And narratively, again, would make a lot of sense because that's how you would work. You would armoured wedge going forward.
On the subject of narrative as well, has anybody noticed how much they were trying to ram Crusade gameplay down your throat?
Yeah.
I think 5 questions.
I think it's just because it's their new thing, so they want to have a real push of it. But I can't see a lot of tournament players being interested in it. Like I'm interested in it, but it's like they say.
I'd love to go to a Crusade event.
Yeah,
That sounds very cool.
I go to an event down in Bristol every year called Spoils of War, and that's a narrative campaign weekend. I'd be stunned if they didn't make the next one Crusade.
Well, Grant went to the Durham Raiders one back in February. Me and Lucy were supposed to go. They run it as an Age of Sigmar narrative event, and I wouldn't be surprised if they implemented something similar to this in the next one.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically, from what it seems like, it's Path to Glory version 3. I think we're up to now.
Yeah.
We've had 2 different versions of Path to Glory. This is version 3 for 40k.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it sounds really good. I think it gives guys a really good opportunity for conversions. Like, I'm not a huge narrative player, but I'd go to this makes me want to go to a narrative tournament.
Yeah.
And play it for a weekend and just bring the most fluffy army you could and have just loads of fun.
Dante the Dreadnought!
Dante the Dreadnought, he's back!
Yeah. So, other stuff that they mentioned. Someone asked, have you forgotten about monsters in relation to tanks being able to fire in combat and stuff?
Oh, yeah, monsters.
And Pete Foley specifically said, no, monsters can do what tanks can do, and perhaps some things better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
But on the flip side of that, I would then expect to see the points values of vehicles and monsters go up.
Yes.
Because now you're going to have to kill them. So for a player that deals fairly well with armor, but normally by touching them inappropriately so they can't go anywhere. Yeah. Now you're going to have to kill it every time.
Yeah.
And again, does that invalidate some of the stratagems I've got, like Harlequins with Kegarak's Jest? Like, if you don't need to come out of combat, I'm never ever going to get a chance to use that stratagem again, potentially. Yeah. But that's fine. But what are they going to do to counter to stop tanks being ridiculously overpowered? So I wonder whether they go up.
Well,
as somebody painting 13 different speed buggies right now, I'm okay with them getting a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, and they need a boost. 100% they need a boost.
I think there's been an implication in some of the wording that the tanks can only shoot at the thing that they're in combat with, because they've used words like you can shoot your enemies in point blank range when they're in combat with you. So I think it might be that, which
I was assuming that.
Do you know the easy way to fix that is if a tank is in combat with infantry, change all weapon types to pistol.
Yeah.
Done.
I think the tanks will be about the right point still if they can only shoot what they're in combat with. I mean, it's not too bad for the assaulting player then, because you can just throw a couple of guardsmen into a tank and still technically shut that tank down for a turn.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's again they gave us enough information for us to make fairly educated guesses on certain things, but we don't know the rules. No. And they hopefully this has all been really well thought out. Yeah. And it's just going to be straight down the middle, and you're like, right, this makes perfect. Because you shouldn't be able to stop a tank doing anything with a grot.
No.
It's just silly. But
looking at the rules for like the custom booster blaster, like just because I've got them right in front of me, like they've got the flame exhausts. Well, why shouldn't I be able to just go into combat and just burn everything?
Doing donuts.
Like, exactly.
Donuts. No, I agree. I do agree. I think it makes sense.
So the next thing that they mentioned was somebody asked, are all chapters going to get access to all of this new shiny stuff, including Deathwatch? Now, They specifically said, yes, Death Watch can use the new stuff. No mention of the other Primaris stuff. And they didn't mention Grey Knights.
No, they didn't.
I'm not surprised about the Grey Knights thing.
But then you could argue that Death Watch shouldn't really have Primaris because Death Watch are veterans.
But we've got veteran Primaris now. It's been 200 years or so since the Indominus.
Quite a long time now.
Yeah, fair enough.
And also the other little nugget with Death Watch that he said straight after that, said pretty much was that pretty much giving away that Death Watch were going to be the almost first bit of Ninth to get a massive overhaul.
Yeah.
So I think that will get the Vanguard in. I think the Vanguard will be in that. I think that I suspect Death Watch may be one of the first books released.
Do you know what?
I think we'll get Marines and Necrons and then maybe Death Watch.
Yeah.
I think Death Watch and Harlequins.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was hoping Harlequins like that. And then that would make sense with the amount of stuff they would lose at the initial part if they had a reworking. Yeah, I was thinking that in the back of my head.
And that's why they've only put them in White Dwarf as well.
Yeah, just a small update. Just
that's a good call.
You don't something there.
All my dreams would come true.
There's something wrong with you, boy.
I just like Harlequins are my joy. I love them. I love them so much. They're the best faction out there.
So the next thing that was mentioned, and this was mentioned a while ago, and they said that they were working on all the Forge World books again. Now, a lot of people, including Mark, one of the Patreons, has a very large Renegades of Chaos army, and he wants to see them redone. Equally, there's plenty of cool stuff that I want to buy from Forge World. I'm sure James and Jake want to buy lots of stuff from Forge World. And I think a lot of people are just holding off until they see the new rules. But what they said was that there would be Forge World books coming for, wait for it, the current Forge World range is what they said.
Yeah.
And I've highlighted that in my notes. They specifically said the current Forge World range.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the flip side to that, someone then asked about Legends, and Stu Black said that they wouldn't be adding stuff to the Legends just willy-nilly. It would only be as and when, and a few units here and there.
Yeah.
So
basically, when the molds die out and they don't want to redo the units.
Yeah.
There's already loads of 40k stuff that's not available anymore, though. The Chaplain Dreadnought is a popular one.
Yeah.
The Narlox, which I've got for me Tau, they actually released rules for them, granted they were only power level, but you can't buy them. There's a lot of stuff.
I think in the new Forge World books there'll be a bit of a tidying up of things that they just don't produce anymore, so they'll just shift them over to Legends then.
Yeah.
And I think them saying that it's now written by the same rules team, which I don't know. I think we knew that.
No, it did used to be a separate team who just I think they might just run a bit past the current rules team, but I think they were largely their own.
Yeah, because the Forge World developers basically deal with all the specialist games now, and then.
And obviously, Horus Heresy is their own baby.
Yeah.
And then Stu Black looks after 40k.
So do you think, though, that with the potential new codices that are coming down the line, that they're then going to amalgamate, say the Guard Codex comes out, that then you're going to have Deathcore in that, and then some of the other things potentially?
No,
I
think
they stay separate?
Because Deathcore is so different to Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've just got a lot of unique units that the Guard just won't have.
Okay.
I think the same with like Space Marines. If they do proper Red Scorpions, they need the rules in the Forge World books. Yeah, there is I think there was a White Dwarf article for the Red Scorpions. I can't remember.
Sure.
But anyway, chapters that came about through the Badab Wars and the books that Forge World produced. Forge World should make their rules. And I mean, it's not hard. Look at Infiltrators, right? They can take a Helix Adept for an extra 10 points.
Yeah.
Red Scorpion Tactical Marines should just have a Helix Adept in.
Yeah.
And look, the squad's got Feel No Pain.
Because that was originally in place of the Sergeant, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And when Ian started building his Red Scorpions army, he was always going Iron Hands. And then, of course, they released Space Marine Codex 2. And now nobody likes him.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm kidding. Ian was playing Iron Hands before they overpowered them.
He was.
Yeah, because it makes the most sense for what you're trying to achieve.
I'd like to see Elder Corsair rules. Like, get them back.
They're still not legal. Done. You cannot run a legal army of Eldar Corsairs at the minute.
I know. It's so frustrating. But hopefully, maybe they'll come. Maybe they'll come when the new book, well, newish books comes in, or the updated books comes in. Maybe we'll get proper rules in there.
Yeah, they're going to address all this because obviously they said with Deathcore they're going to bring them in line with the guard. The current guard stuff, so they're going to get their own like doctrines. I don't know if they have them already, but they're going to get all the things that the other guard models do get.
Do we think this will lead to the wider acceptance of Forge World, particularly in like GW stores? Will they start now that all the rules are collated?
Yeah,
they'll start ordering Forge World in stores, playing it in stores and whatnot.
I think there's still a bit of a weird stigma against Forge World in that every single Forge World model is overpowered. It did used to kind of be the case, but now a lot of them are quite substandard. Obviously, there's some standouts like the Leviathan with twin storm cannons, obviously. But most of the Forge World stuff, I mean, I look at the Forge World Knights as an example. They're not very good. I'd be fine to fight against a load of them.
Yeah.
And the rules should be better for them anyway now because GW are doing the rules for everything. So the rules will fit in better with the current editions as they pop up.
It always surprises me that how many people aren't even aware of Forge World. So Ian posted a picture of his hero jewel on the Dark Artisan Facebook page, right? And someone commented saying, "Oh my god, that is so cool. What is this model?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't understand. And how people just aren't aware of Forge World.
But even in a lot of official stores, they still won't speak about Forge World.
We don't talk of Forge World.
Yeah. Like, you hear about that all the time.
Yeah.
I think this might be a thing about like this. The guy who said that may just be a guy who goes into GW stores, plays against his local guys, and doesn't really explore it much further. Forge World's very much not sound like a weird elitist thing. I don't mean like that at all. It's very much for like an experienced hobbyist. You don't want your first kind of model to be a Forge World model because they're quite they're quite picky. I don't think they want to promote Forge World that much. It's something you should kind of find or grow into.
Yeah, they're a pain in the neck sometimes to put together, and they're normally the art, the design on them is so there's so much extra detail on a lot of their stuff quite often, and they're normally when you get some of the big diorama models like the Primarchs for 30k and stuff like that, where there's a lot of work that goes into putting them together. There's a lot of work that goes into painting them, even more than like some of the current stuff like Mortarion and things like that. Yeah. So I think they cost a lot more. So a lot of people haven't heard of it because they're put off it by other people. Oh, don't bother looking at Forge World. It's too expensive. Just concentrate on this.
Yeah, true.
Right, moving on. Sixes always hit and modifiers are capped at +or -1. We did touch on the capped modifiers, but sixes always hit. Realistically then, do you know what? I've just had a thought. If you're capped at -1 to hit, right, you move with a heavy weapon, you're shooting a Latok flyer more than 12 inches away.
Yeah.
That's only -1.
Yeah.
Good.
Bad. No, bad.
But sixes always hit. I can't think of an instance when you would hit on less than a 5.
Yeah, apart from Orcs who would then hit on 6s, so it doesn't really matter.
No, but Orcs Daka specifically says that a 6 would hit.
Yeah.
Even if you're at -3 at the minute, a 6 still hits. For
Orcs.
Still
6 hits.
Yeah, you can chuck stuff down to -4 at the moment, but obviously in the new, like, he was just answering a question that was put out. I don't think that it's going to be written into the rules that a 6 always hits because there's no need for it to write in the rules anymore because you can only have a maximum of -1. I don't think anyone's got a BS of 6.
It's true though,
yeah.
No.
Unless
Tanks in combat hit on 6s.
Yeah. They will write it down because there'll be a few outlying things. Like there'll be a psychic power which makes you only hit on 6s, and then what happens when you're -1 shooting a flyer. So they will write that down, but the orcs don't need it in the special rule anymore because very rarely is anyone else going to be not hitting because they can't roll a 6.
Yeah.
I just think the cap should have been -2.
Yeah, I agree with
-2. -2 would have been fine, and I think that would have pretty much alleviated everything and still made some of the other things worthwhile. With some of the things, and some of the stratagems and psychic abilities worthwhile. But again, we don't know the rules. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what's going to take into account to counteract that.
Look at Tau though. 5 marker lights is +1 to hit, and then you take a velocity tracker for it against flyers. That's +2 to hit. Now it's like, well, what if I've got all these marker lights? What's the point of me taking a velocity tracker now?
Well, it won't help you.
Velocity tracker and shoot the marker lights at something that isn't flying.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was trying to create a situation, Jake. That was all.
Well, I'm hoping they're not seeing army composed entirely about our flyers anymore, but I don't know if
Well, I don't know. But you might actually see more flyers potentially in certain set of circumstances.
Possibly, but they did touch. We'll obviously come to that later when we get to the question. But
it's the next one.
A different.
Oh, he's ready. Harry's ready.
It's the next one. So
this is so much more prepared than the AOS one.
You take the lead on the AOS one, not me.
Since when?
Harry, now.
So, Grant, did you ever play 7th?
I played a little bit of 7th, and I played a little bit, most of 6th, a little bit of 7th, and then some 8th.
Right, okay, so you'll already be familiar with this. Ian, for example, has only played 2nd and 8th edition.
That's a jump.
Oh, yeah. Well, I only played 2nd and 7th, and then
I've only played 8th. 8th is my first one.
Ah, right.
Wait, have I played the most 40k editions here?
I did.
So I played 2nd, 3rd. I don't think I played 4th, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th.
I watched a lot
one
of
more than me.
So, James, flyers can move off the table now.
Yes, that used to happen a lot. You used to be able to bring them in and take them off again. No, I think that was well called for, because I think having flyers, my wings hanging off the edge of the table I'm now destroyed, was a bit stupid.
It was.
However, I also understand that the abuse people did was sticking flyers in ridiculous places.
I agree.
Now with the newer rules, I think that will alleviate a lot of that. So I think the potential for flyers to go off and come back. Now it depends with flyers, will you be able to position wherever you want? Can they come in if you take them off one board edge? They have to return from a certain board edge. I'm interested to see how the mechanics of that will actually work with 9th.
Well, in 7th, you just brought them back on wherever.
Yeah, and I suspect that's probably what will happen. But there's the whole thing with reserves all told, really. But the fact that the way reserves work is changing quite a lot.
Yeah, so what they said on reserves is that you can spend command points to put stuff in reserve, and you can outflank more as the game goes by.
Yeah, I noticed that wording.
Yeah.
Hopefully it means what I want it to mean.
I think turn 1, you'll only be able to come on from your board edge. And turn 2, unless there's a CP element to this potentially. Turn 2, I reckon you'll be flanking at one side, and then from turn maybe 3 onwards, you can come on from their edge of the board. Yeah. Something along those lines, and there'll be stratagems to manipulate that.
Yeah, that would be happy with that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That'll be fine, yeah.
Then you've really got to think: can I afford to wait till turn 3 to bring in this unit in their lines?
Yeah.
But also screening, you'll be like, as an opponent, you'll be like, well, hang on, I know he's got a unit of Wolfram off the board. Is he going to bring them in on my Devastators or my Knight at the rear, my Castellan at the rear, turn 4 or what? I think it actually tactically opens up some really interesting plays.
Mm-hmm.
It does. I think you might see in competitive environments, obviously we haven't seen the missions yet, you might see a lot more objectives being pushed to the centre of the board rather than back on the edge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That'll be quite interesting to see. Having a bit more of a centre fight rather than having smoke all the way across to your opponent's back edge. That'd be quite cool.
But the thing about
certain missions, you may have to place them within edges, so it's going to encourage you to put reserves in certain missions and other missions it won't. So like it could balance it like that, which could be interesting.
Yeah.
The thing with putting the objectives in the middle as well is that could be also a way of trying to get combat enemies easier into armies easier to get into combat, because your opponent has to move forward to get the objectives. They're then within charge range of your combat army.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they also mentioned that morale has changed slightly. They said the core mechanic hasn't changed, but what they felt was either morale was completely irrelevant or you lost your whole unit.
Yeah.
And I agree.
That's correct, yeah.
Which is also the problem in Age of Sigmar. Like, so it's a GW system problem, I think, at this point, not just a 40k problem.
Okay.
So they said that there is things that will interact with it, and they changed it so that your whole unit wouldn't just die. But units with leadership modifiers can do more, such as Reavers, for example, because they've got the -1 leadership bubble.
Yeah.
That becomes much more of a thing, is what they said. And I think they said something about Night Lords, because I think they've got -1 leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Death Jesters will be useful again, and although they're really useful now, they'll be even more useful.
Death Jesters are the guys that can just snipe a whole unit now, aren't they?
Yeah, they can kill the world, essentially, now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if that will affect the armies I play. Because obviously it won't affect Knights, because that's ridiculous.
Knights run away.
When a knight runs away, good sir.
But obviously I play Custodians a lot, and I basically tell my opponent, unless you have a massive amount of minus modifiers, I don't care about your morale tests.
Funny that, Jake, because you also say that about your Bone Reapers.
I don't play, I sold my Bone Reapers. I don't play AOS, so I couldn't be bothered in the end.
Oh. Look at you, you just killed the whole mood.
I know, right? I didn't have time for it, man. I've got 3 40k armies. But Marines, I think Marines need, I know they've got, obviously, and they show no fear, but I think they need to run the risk of occasionally losing one model.
The problem with that is MSU. You take a squad of 5 Marines, you lose 3. Oh no, I've got a 6-up re-rollable and I'll lose 1 more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to do something to balance leadership unit size across the board.
Yeah, they might do a tiered leadership system where if you've got a certain amount of models, you get a slightly better leadership or something.
Well, that's in EOS, because if you for every 10 models, you get +1 to your bravery.
Okay. That could be a thing, but it depends how they work it. Because obviously, if you have Marines at leadership 6 and 5 models, and leadership 7 and 10 models, that's obviously just a rushed example. I don't know if that will work.
But I think it'd be nice to have a difference. Like, there should be more reasons to take min or max squads. I think I would quite like to see how they play that out.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason to take max squads at the moment is so that a stratagem can affect more models. That's pretty much the only reason I can see ever to take a max unit size.
The thing that EOS does is if you max out a squad, you get it at a point discount.
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, I think ghouls are 100 points for 10, or you can take 40 for like 370 points.
Yeah.
Like that. So, 30 point off, yeah.
So, this squad of 5 intercessors is, 18 times 5? So, like 90 points. But by the way, if you take a squad of 10 intercessors, you can get them for 175 points instead of 180.
Yeah.
That's a bad example.
I wonder if the granular point system of 40k, though, doesn't translate as well into discounts.
They have set precedent with it with Horus Heresy. I don't know if anyone's looked at that system in any detail, but you start off by buying a unit of 5 at quite a steep points cost, but every extra guy you add is cost less.
Okay, that'd be cool.
That used to happen with orcs in 40k, didn't it? If you had a unit of orcs, they'd be a certain price, but then you add another 10, it was a massive discount, so you could have larger mobs of boys for a cheaper amount of money, or points rather.
I don't recall that. I
thought it was one of the earlier editions. I'm sure. Oh, that might well be.
It may have been quite an early edition then. So I played since 5th, but I've never played orcs, so I don't know.
And I've This is my first time playing orcs, so I'm not much help.
Yeah, plus you've got no boys.
Who needs boys when you've got all of the buggies in the world? I am concerned about deployment zones, however. The more of these I build, the size of bases I realise, but it's fine. I'll just outflank them now.
Outflank them, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Outflank that squad of 3 Megatrack scrap jets and then charge them.
Oh, they're charging up the board with the Death Killer, because you can give them running charge.
Yeah.
No.
Something else that they mentioned, power level was going to be adjusted because they felt that, you know, they openly said, look, we're not going to change it as much as points. However, we acknowledge that some of these are probably wrong. We will adjust them.
Yeah,
It's cool if you play power.
I've never used it, so
Nope, me neither.
I've been to one event that played power level. It was fine. Like, it was a very easy-going event, you know. But
Did you get drunk?
Played power level, yeah. We played power level and open war cards. It was a nice change, to be honest. And it was WYSIWYG, so you couldn't just go, all right, I'm buying this unit of Devastators for this amount of power level. Everyone's got a melter gun. You had to actually have the Devastators with the melter gun.
Yeah, I think with power, WYSIWYG's kind of really important.
It's essential, yeah. The fact they're adjusting it will affect a few people, so it's nice that they're doing it.
Yeah.
I've got 2 more things before we go back to the main point of the whole thing with 9th edition. There was lots of mentions about Blood Angels.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to paint any more Blood Angels just yet.
Yeah,
Well, you've painted the entire new box red, haven't you? So...
Yes.
I mean, this has only happened because you paint all your blood in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is all your fault.
I've finished my entire collection. I've got no models left to paint. So now
You've all brought this on yourself.
That's a myth. That's in fairness. I know you guys have kept pretty up to date with what I've got left to paint. I don't have much 40k left to paint.
Yeah.
Let's buy a whole new army. That's what I did. I had painted everything till I bought, 2,000 points of orcs.
Well, I'm still in the process of freehanding the second company and the first company banner, and then I've got Sanguinius to paint, which obviously doesn't really count because he hasn't got 40k points.
Yeah.
He's just there as a collection piece. But no, the Blood Angels were mentioned quite a lot of times, so they said they would pick.
It's okay. They'll bring Sanguinius back when they do more Primarchs.
No, leave him dead.
Wait.
Leave him dead.
Happy Christmas, Primarchs are coming.
Leave him dead. Kill Dante.
Yeah.
Or bring
full
Dante back
Bravo and
as
Vulcan.
Sanguinius.
So, actually, somebody said, is there any other big players? And they said, we don't want you to look under the Christmas tree just yet.
Yeah, that's the Lion.
Lion and Fulgrim.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, they're the hot topic for the recent ones where Lion was coming back and Fulgrim was coming back. So I expect to see the one or both.
Why isn't Vulcan coming back though? He's the only one that doesn't die. Vulcan can't die.
His hand's still planted; it's growing still.
I am Groot.
He's a perpetual.
I want Russ back.
Yeah, Russ will be good.
I think Russ coming back because he disagrees with Gilliman on a lot of parts. And whilst they're not going to be friends, I don't think they'll be enemies, but they'll have disagreements.
Yeah,
the friction would be good.
Yeah, no, it would be cool.
Russ and the Lion both coming back would be friction in kind of 3 different directions.
Well, that'll be awkward.
If they ever do decide to really go for it and have a proper Imperial Civil War, man, it would be so good.
Aye.
We all know the Dark Angels are chaos anyway, so what's the point?
I just want Dante to die.
Just leave him alone. You like Blood Angels. Just leave the poor guy alone.
Mate, he's 1700. He wants to die.
I'm pretty sure at this point we're crossing into cyberbullying territory.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was lots of mentions of Blood Angels. I'll move on from that. Blast weapons were questioned. What constitutes a blast weapon? And Stu Black said it's in the appendix of the core book.
Yeah.
Everything's in the appendix of the core book.
It's a bit of a weird question because it's more than likely going to be anything that was a blast weapon in 7th edition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which obviously they don't want to say.
Yeah.
And
So
whatever new weapons they come up with that will potentially have a blast side option. So I suspect some of the new Devastator for the Primaris, maybe those new melter guns, potentially will have a single shot vehicle, a blast option for hordes.
Like a mini night melter cannon thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think some blast weapons that you'll see will be the mortar on the Plague Burst Crawler, the
Yeah.
Demolisher Cannon on the Vindicator and Lehman Russ,
Yeah.
the battle cannons, Earthshaker cannons. I wouldn't be surprised if what used to be the small blast templates, so like the plasma cannon and frag missiles, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't counted as blast.
Well, because they've got a smaller amount of shots, because they're rather than D6, they're D3. So if you're saying like a maximum amount of shots is 6,
A frag missile is still D6.
but it's only strength 3, so it's a bit like, well,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
I'm pretty sure one of the squid buggy profiles could be a blast. You know, let's make it good, please.
Please.
It's so cool.
Make my orcs good.
So yeah, I think a lot of weapons will change to blast, and I think it'll be whatever was the large blast in 7th. It's probably going to be the blast rules.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to change much unless you're fighting against hordes, which again was a very woolly answer against a big unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could just be as simple as, you know, modify. Well, because so we have to say +1 to hit per like 10 guys, but that doesn't work. 'Cause you only got up to +1. But I guess +1 for a squad being over 10 wouldn't be terrible.
No.
I think it's going to be something like a unit of more than 10 models with 1 win.
Yeah.
That's a very quick way of just going,
Or-
that's a horde.
I think they should double up on that though. So if there's 10 or more, or 20 or more, because a lot of units can have 20 or more models in quite easily.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you would take 30 plague bearers, you would take 30 orcs. I can't think of a third one.
Grots,
How many can you get in Necron Warriors?
termagants.
You can get
Necron Warriors is 20.
That would then be classed as a horde, though. You can't have 20 Necron Warriors and not be able to hit them with a blast weapon.
Yeah.
What if hordes won't be a generic term, but will be based on each codex?
Yeah.
So, for example, Tyranids and Orcs, if a unit consists of 10 or more models, it is classed as a horde.
So it goes the horde keyword.
I would argue for orcs and tyranids, be 20 or more would be a horde because you always take them in bigger squads.
Or demons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like
demons
Marines,
are
even at a unit of 10, you might get +1 to hit.
That's why I'm saying 11 or more. More than
Yeah.
10. Because,
Yeah.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah. As soon as
Just
you get
balance
down
it based on the book rather than an overall figure. You obviously do an overall figure for the rule book to get it out there, but maybe then it becomes a bit more granular when the codexes start to drop.
Yeah. It'll be based around something like the horde keyword or something like that. So when you get to the orc book, it'll go as soon as you go above 15 boys or whatever, you gain the horde keyword.
Yeah, and same with like termagants and ormagants.
Yeah.
So, that is pretty much everything that was mentioned, right? But I want to have quite a bit of a conversation regarding the whole command point situation, because they specifically said they want to level the playing field. And I agree. James obviously mentioned, or Jake mentioned earlier, Custodes. It's very, very hard to fit 2 Custodes detachments in a 2,000 point or a 1,750 point list. You're forcing yourself to have to take a battalion to get the command points to then run, for example, your spearhead with 3 Telemons.
Yeah.
And you're forcing yourself to, or in this case, you might not have the points because you've had to pay for the battalion, and you've got 9 command points, that's it. Where if you go Tau, you can very easily fit a brigade in 1,500, 1,750 points.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Yeah.
You could probably do it with
You can do a
orcs as well.
1500-point brigade as well.
Yeah, there's several armies. I mean, you could probably do it with Tyranids as well. There's several armies that you could do it with very easily, and giving them more command points and starving the other ones is. I never liked that. So what they're doing now by saying that your command points are based on the points of the game, I think that is so good.
Yeah, it's definitely the best thing we heard on the stream.
Yes, but right now, my issue with this is the potential for abuse. Now, because before when you had,
I'm just thinking narratively. I'm so innocent.
Yeah, see, I never think narratively. I'm sorry, but what I'm thinking is that you've got armies where, okay, knights, for example, they have a lot of really good stratagems. You needed the CP from the guard to power these stratagems.
Yeah.
So now you get knights that have as many 2,000 points, have as many CPs as a guard army, say. But you don't have to take that battery of stuff to power it. So you can take, I know it's not a lot with guard, it's probably a poor example, but you can have extra stuff. But I'm thinking of armies like, all right, Custodes, where for 2,000 points, all right, do you know what? I'm just going to take bikes. My whole army's going to be bikes. For Harlequins, do you know what? I'm just going to take Skyweavers and a few characters. Space Wolves. Yeah, let's do a Wolfen army.
Yeah.
You know, and I think...
But thematically, all of those kind of excite me.
No, and they are good. But I think it has the potential. Again, we don't know the rules. We don't know where this goes, where there is limitations potentially. So maybe you still have to take a certain amount of years. But this has the potential to be very quickly broken by top players.
Oh, yeah.
And Soup's not going to die. Soup might just become much more efficient. So actually, do you know what? I'm going to take Deathwing Knights. I'm going to take Imperial Fists, Thunderfire Battery, and I'm going to take Space Wolves characters.
Right.
Actually, I'm still parrying the same amount of CP.
I wonder if...
Hypothetically, say you got 15 command points, but to take the Imperial Fist cost you 2 command points. To take the Guard Battery cost you another 2 command points. You've lost 4 of your 15 already. Do you still want to take your suit, or would you rather just take all your knights with 15 command points?
If I was taking my Space Wolves...
that's what I meant.
I pay the CP, because actually you may only be paying the CP to use a certain amount of stratagems. Now, if they change all the stratagems, that might be different. But sometimes
what about if it's 2 CP for the first ally and 4 CP for the next one?
Then it might be different. But I still reckon there's people that are going to take it. Look at the amount of top players now that actually the super doctrines for any of the Astartes chapters, they don't give a toss about that.
Now
some of them only run, but also some of them only run on very limited CP. They actually just want certain abilities to use a couple of times that they know will be enough to destroy that army. And that's what concerns me slightly about this. It all depends on how many CP you get for what points. Yeah.
What about if you have to pick a main faction and you can't use stratagems from another book?
That might make a difference.
That would, yeah. A lot of the
so you can take the units, but you can't get their stratagems, and you've given up CP to take them.
Yeah.
Hang on, what were you saying there, Jake? Sorry.
A lot of the abilities you're mentioning about top players try and use these stratagems or whatever twice in a game, and they know they've won. A lot of them center around being able to stack modifiers more or less than +1.
Very true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
So that's going to balance out that way. Another thing is, even if they are going to be breaking into cherry picking the very best units, trying to worry about troops, I'm still a little bit more excited about that. I'm constantly seeing 32 guardsmen opposite me. I just don't really care about, oh, good, you've got some guardsmen. Well, fantastic. Cool, you've got some guard tanks. That looks ace.
And if people don't have to take troops, objectives secured would then be worth more.
It would, yeah.
You've taken troops.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be. I think the new competitive season, once 9th hits, is going to be really, really interesting.
They have been saying a lot about mentioning point levels of games and what rules and different things they unlock. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it hardwired into the actual match play game set that you can only take certain amounts of units per sort of match points level. Like the rule of 3 at the moment, but either just the rule of 3 again or something a bit more refined.
Yeah, I think you're probably right though. In fairness, I think I'm probably being a bit down on it. I think the rule of 3 is probably what's going to carry it over to still make it. Yeah, you can take what you want, but you still going to take 3 of a certain item. And I think that would probably fix it fairly well.
That would also push the Crusade gameplay style for the people who don't care about the rule of 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you want to take 6 of whatever unit, great. Go and play Crusade.
Yeah.
I think as well the comment about the missions was worth bringing up as well.
That they were geared for more competitive player.
The match play missions specifically were geared towards that. Because I think what that means is not everybody start panicking that the missions are going to go one way. I think that means they're going to try and push narrative missions to be what you play with your mates.
Yeah.
Because right now, no one looks at the narrative section of the books half the time. When you're playing against your mate, you still pick a match play mission.
No, I really enjoy a nice casual game a lot of the time, but I've never looked at the narrative stuff.
But
So if they just divide them... Yeah.
Have you noticed that the match play rules in each subsequent chapter approved have become more and more and more like ITC missions?
They have,
because GW have always been bad at writing competitive matches and competitive play. They've been desperately trying to claw back the competitive element, and ITC have always done it better than them. So I personally think it's good for the game if you've got GW writing good competitive missions, and you'll still always have ITC doing good competitive missions, and it will force ITC to raise their game a bit to keep everybody playing what they want people to play, and it will force GW to sort their life out and actually keep on top of all the mistakes they've made through competitive play. So I think it's only good for competitive play, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
They haven't said anything about Maelstrom missions yet, have they?
No, I'd be surprised to see them go away. They may shift the narrative. Like I said, I really enjoy Maelstrom missions. So
Maelstrom's the main reason I came back to 40k was, despite my opinions on the game and my general preference of Age of Sigmar, was how much fun I have playing Maelstrom missions.
That's awesome.
This is why when I ran the Dark Artisan Open last year, obviously Jake attended and played there. That is why I chose the Maelstrom missions that I did, because they were so random. I mean, your opponent picking your cards that you have to score.
That's brilliant.
That's fun. But that is not in Chapter Approved 19. Chapter Approved 19 has Schemes of War, which you basically custom build your deck. Or Harness the Warp. I don't have any cyclers, I'll leave that one out anyway. I liked Refined Strategy to remove 6 cards. That was good, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now, being able to literally gear your deck to your army, like, if you go combat army, do you really want overwhelming firepower? Probably not. I'll get rid of that. I'll get rid of domination. I'll get rid of, 10 others that I'm never going to achieve. And
I don't mind maybe discarding 2 or 3, pre-game.
Up to 6 is what they used to say.
Yeah, no, that's too
But on top of that, I don't like the whole, you've got 5 cards in your hand, you play 3 of them. You're still controlling what objectives you're going for, rather than it being random, which Maelstrom was. I'm not fussed on the Maelstrom missions from Chapter Approved 19. I like the older ones.
I really like those ones. And actually, I think, all right, you are right. There's a lot of cards coming out. But you still can tweak it, especially when the other player has some control about taking a card out. All right, so you might not get overwhelmed, but they'll take that away. So, all right, you're not going to get overwhelmed with firepower this turn. So you might just have to deal with just capturing, defending an objective. Which, all right, defending's 2 turns anyway, or 1 full turn, let's say, and then you might get 3 instead of 2 plus D3.
My issue is it's not as random and fun, because you're still controlling. You've got a selection of 5 cards. You control what 3 you put down. Yes, your opponent can then influence that, but you're still aware of what's going to happen. You're still making a choice of what your objectives for that turn are.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I prefer the randomness.
Would you be happy with just the 6 cards removed? So you could pick the 6 worst ones to remove?
Yeah.
Yeah, should still make an interesting game and still be tactical in the regard of how you play your hand.
But I don't like the schemes of war where you're drawing the cards into your hand. I'd rather just leave them on the pile and just draw the 3 that you need for that turn.
So I really enjoyed playing Schemes of War. I thought it was really good.
I like Schemes of War, but it does. Harry's right. It does reduce the randomness, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I've played it a few times. What's the maximum? What's the minimum card limit you got out? Like 18? Yeah. So you've still got a fair bit of chaff that you can just draw out and go, oh, I cannot do this.
You can get rid of half your deck.
Yeah, but a lot of those stuff you wouldn't be able to do anyway.
And I've seen people draw a hand and not be able to, with the Schemes of War, and not be able to score anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
it still it does happen. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're completely right. It probably doesn't happen as often as you like. And in fairness, if you were using Maelstrom in competitive play, you probably wouldn't want it that. I know, I'm dragging it back to competitive.
No, in fairness, no, you're right, because I think that's what they're trying to do with Maelstrom, so that people can play it a little bit more competitively. Yeah. But for me, I mean, Jake knows as well as anybody else, I'm not asked about competitive play.
No.
I'd rather turn up, have a laugh, and not care if I get destroyed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather have a game where like my cards are like, for example, Blood Angel ones, kill the enemy warlord, and you lose your warlord. Noble self-sacrifice. Oh, great. So the only way I can actually lose my character to score points is, I'm going to charge me normal lieutenant at your demon prince of Khorne and then kill him.
Yeah.
I've always sort of had the argument that people say Maelstrom isn't competitive. I would argue it can be very competitive because you have to react and think on your feet, and that's what I like. I think the thing I don't like about Eternal War missions is you kind of go with a plan and you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't make you a good general, makes you a good planner.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the idea of, okay, this is the mission, right? How do I achieve enough goals this game to get the victory? And yes, you could get totally screwed, but you know, I'm pretty sure that happens in war as well.
Yeah, that's true, totally.
I mean, I've seen Blackadder. I've seen people give the wrong orders to their troops.
And I've played quite a few tournaments that they do a mixture of Eternal War and Maelstrom of War missions. Mainly when I was down in Bristol, because it's a bit more of a relaxed scene down there. Well, it was before I left. And you still see the same top players winning those tournaments. So it's not too dissimilar. I think people just get a bit hung up on it and go, "Oh, I might have a bad game." It's like, well, yeah, tough. You might have a bad game.
Well, you might have a bad game in ITC as well. So deal with it, and move on. I'm very interested to see what they do with the new competitive missions. And like I say, I love the Maelstrom cards. I love the random element of it, and I love the fact that actually suddenly you might be a combat army that's pushing forward, and suddenly somebody's got to run back and grab an objective behind you because there's something you left your important briefcase behind. It's like, get back there, take that. My sandwiches are there. Get back and deal with it.
Yeah, I do. I think there's a middle point between the refining it down to 18 cards and being able to take out 6 is just looking at the armies you're presented with and just taking out cards that you absolutely cannot do. That's your deck then.
Yeah. So
I think you could even do it pre-event.
Take out Witch Hunter. Because you know you're never going to get it.
Yeah.
See, what I was thinking is you could do it, pull out your own cards pre-event. So you're picking out stuff like you don't have a Psyker, you'll take out your hardest Psychic power card. But you'll leave anything about killing enemy Psychers because you're probably going to face some.
So you're card deck
going to remove a lot less cards.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're just taking out stuff that you can't. There's no way in any game you could ever achieve. I could never achieve. Psychic power is an obvious one to pull out because not everyone takes Psychers. But you wouldn't want to take out the Killer Psyker card because you're going to face them at some point.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Fairly comprehensive.
I think the command point system is definitely for me, that is one of the biggest and best changes that they've mentioned that they're bringing in 9th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see how many command points you get for a 2,000 point game. Because I think knowing that will affect what players will do. And with their reworking stratagems, what stratagems are costing now. I think that will massively impact what people are going to bring. Because I think you've got that fine line between, okay, do you know what? I am going to suit, no, not worth it, pure all the way. And I really hope it has much more pure armies now, because suit was ridiculous and is ridiculous throughout this edition.
It's the two main things main bits of information we need to see. We need to see how much command points do we get and how much does it cost to suit.
Yeah, 100%. I think that'll be once that you go, okay. And I guarantee, no matter how much it costs, you'll still find somebody who will soup and break it. Somebody will do it.
Of course. But I think
kudos to them.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. I don't think anyone can really argue it's not going in the right way.
Oh, no. I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited. And to be honest, this the new edition, if I'm brutally honest, can't come quick enough now.
No.
So, on the subject of the new edition coming quick enough, there's two things that I want to mention. First of all, hats off to GW, right? Because I remember being in 7th edition, and I think they FAQ'd each codex once in 3 years, and then like 6 months before the end, every week they updated the FAQ for each one, and then like the whole Warhammer community thing started off just towards the end of 7th edition, right? So hats off to them for the last 4 years, because they've stayed in touch, they've listened to people. They're still going to be on a learning curve, and honestly, even from just the way that they've spoke about this, like the terrain, the command points and everything, and I know they tried to get rid of soup before, but they've obviously been waiting to come up for a correct way to do it. I think they're genuinely starting to do a very good job.
Yeah, definitely.
And the last thing that I'm going to mention is, if you haven't signed up to the Warhammer 40,000 newsletter yet, they are running a competition to win a mystery box if you sign up. If you're already signed up, you're already entered. However, Mr. J. Killard went through the terms and conditions.
Yes, I did.
And what did you see?
I found out the value of the mystery prize is £120, and that the release of the mystery prize is in July. If I was a betting man, I'd say that mystery prize was the new starter box for 40k. I mean, that's obviously no confirmation from anyone at all that that's exactly what it is, but
that's exactly what it is.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Jake has just said the new box set, the new edition will be starting early in July.
At
£120.
And if it is £120, I think that's very reasonable. That's a good amount of models for that money.
That's a lot of models.
Especially including if it's a hardback book as well and everything like that. Yeah, that's a great price.
That's a bargain, I think.
How much was Dark Imperium? Was that 85?
That's 95.
95.
Yeah, so 120 seems reasonable for like a 3 year, because obviously they just put all the prices up. Not going to go into it any further. Nobody say anything else. No. So £120. We've seen a lot of the box sets being £120 at the minute. I think that's kind of the new price we can expect. If you get all the marine stuff that you've seen there, fantastic. If you, I can't remember what was on the Necron side.
There's a lot of models.
It's a new War of the Worlds worker, some Scarabs, some Warriors, the maybe never saw Xandrak guy with the two dustbin lads, what looks like the Scorpec Lord, and then those two new quite beefy dudes with the two swords, which look really cool.
Yeah, so it's a fair whack.
Are they pariahs, the guys with the...
No, I think they're the Scorp.
I think they're the Scorpec dudes. The Scorpec Lord obviously commands them because he stood next to them, so it probably makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, if you get that and the book, you're getting a lot of models. I mean, realistically, now when you look back to Dark Imperium, you got a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you got what, 10 Intercessors, 3 Inceptors, 5 Hellblasters, the Ancient, 2 Lieutenants, the Gravis Captain.
Yeah.
And then on the Death Guard side, you've got a Drone, the Lord of Contagion, a plague caster, the Bell guy.
Yeah, the Bell
Yeah.
guy's there.
Probably about 10 plague marines and about 12 poxwalkers.
I think it's 7 Marines, 20
20
Poxwalkers by the look of it. I've got the picture up.
Pretty sure it's 20 Poxwalkers because just the sprue twice.
Yeah, it looks like 20 to me.
And I mean, even them, like that's a generous amount of models. And then when you compare that to Shadow Spear as well, so Shadow Spear, you got 3 Eliminators, 3 Suppressors, 10 Infiltrators, a Lieutenant Librarian, and the Captain. And then on the Marine side, the Chaos Marine side, you got 10 Marines, 2 Obliterators, the Venom Crawler, the Master of Possession, 2 Greater Possessed. I think that's it.
And they were good-looking models. Oh, really?
Those obliterators are fantastic.
Yeah, I just painted one last night actually. So that takes me to 4.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's the box set. I think it's going to be out in July. Jake is a betting man and bet me £120 that it won't be out in July. But yeah, that's it. A little bit longer podcast this evening. But you know, there was a lot of stuff to cover, and of course 4 of us fighting over who wanted to be heard. The joys of lag via Skype. But yeah. But listen, guys, thank you very much. I think that is a very fun podcast that we've just had.
Yeah.
I think,
very good.
I think getting a few more people in the future is probably something I'll look at. Let us know what your thoughts were, though, guys. If you're listening on YouTube, leave comments down below. Let us know. But of course, thank you to Mr. James Ellis, Mr. Jake Hillard, and of course, Mr. Grant Fraser. Jake, you've seen on the channel. Grant, you've heard on the channel. James, you've heard on the channel. James and Grant live at opposite ends of the country. Grant actually lives in another country.
Yeah.
And I'm caught in the middle, and Jake's here in the middle with me instead of somewhere near sheepland.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you very much indeed, guys. I really do appreciate you guys listening, and of course I appreciate these guys joining me for tonight's chat. It's been interesting.
Good one. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Catch us later.
See you later.